Chapter 261. Ling Zhenchuan's words made Lin Tianyu and several others secretly laugh. And that Chen Baoqiang's face was red and white, although he was not happy, but in front of Ling Zhenchuan, he didn't dare to f. Art. No no no. Li Weijian hurriedly waved his hand, pulled Li Lei and said, "This is my son, his name is Li Lei, and this Chen Baoqiang is his father-in-law." Ling Zhenchuan immediately understood what was going on, his face softened a little, but he still followed Li Weijian coldly. "Old Li, so many people come to toast together, are you really afraid that the news of me eating here won't get out?" "Mayor Ling, I definitely didn't mean that, I'll let them go now." Li Weijian shivered with fright, and then kicked Li Lei fiercely. Get out of here, a bunch of idiots." Li Lei was so frightened that he turned his head and ran away, and the Chen Baoqiang family was also trembling for a while, and hurriedly backed out. This time, the family is considered a loss of adults. "Li Lei, what are you doing? Why doesn't Mayor Ling know we're going to toast?" After exiting, Chen Jiayao stared at Li Lei with dissatisfaction and asked. "You still have the face to ask, and it's all your fault for following along. Mayor Ling was secretly here to eat, and so many people came to toast all of a sudden. Can he not be angry? What do you guys think you guys are doing?" Li Lei was kicked, and he was angry. Chen Jiayao yelled at him. Of course, Li Lei was not used to her. Li Lei's words included that Li Shuzhen, which made Li Shuzhen's face turn red and white. Okay, stop arguing, isn't it shameful enough?" Chen Baoqiang glared at the two of them impatiently. "Let's go back and wait for a while, maybe Director Li and Mayor Ling have a few good words, we have another chance." "Yes, my dad will definitely look for opportunities, let's go back first." Li Lei nodded and said. Several people were holding wine glasses, and they all went back gloomily. But as soon as I returned to the private room, I saw that David had packed all the dishes. David was not surprised to see Chen Baoqiang's family coming back. "David, what are you doing? Do you treat guests like this? You have packed up the food before the meal is finished and the guests have left. You don't want to escape the order." As soon as she entered the door and saw the scene in front of her, Li Shuzhen scolded David with her head covered, so that she could vent her depressed mood. "I remember when I just left, someone said that I want to accompany the mayor for a drink. If we don't come back, let's go first. We won't forget it after a while, right?" David looked at Li Shuzhen and smiled coldly. "Or they didn't pay attention to you at all and kicked you out. UF. Art, don't eat the grapes and say the grapes are sour, we have been drinking with Mayor Ling for a long time, and clinking glasses with Mayor Ling, you bought 5 tart in prison, didn't you say that you ate at Mayor Ling's house? Why did we ask Mayor Ling, and Mayor Ling said that he never did?" Chen Ji pointed at David and asked proudly. "I don't know, I really thought he and the mayor had just had a drink." Although they knew that Chen Ji was talking nonsense, the Chen Baoqiang family chose to remain silent, even if they acquiesced to Chen Zi's bragging. David heard what Chen Ji said, and immediately knew that this guy was lying, not to mention that the wine they brought over was still in the glass, and there was not much at all. How did they drink it? Chen Ji, you don't even know how to lie. You don't have a drop of wine in your hands. Why are you drinking wine with Mayor Ling? You can do this kind of nonsense. I think you are even trash. Better. David smiled disdainfully. Chapter 262. Chen Ji was stunned for a moment, looking at his wine glass, his face turned red as soon as he rubbed it. This kind of feeling of being dismantled and slapped in the face on the spot is really uncomfortable. They felt that this wine was a limited edition motai, so no one was willing to throw it away, and brought it back to continue drinking, but now David has caught the loophole. You don't care if we are toasting or not. Anyway, we have seen Mayor Ling, and we are better than you. I want to see you, how to settle the bill today, and if you dare to eat the Overlord meal in Tiger Lord's restaurant, you will definitely peel it off. You have a layer of skin, then I will see if you are crazy." After Chen Ji finished speaking, he sat back directly, ignoring David. "Who said I have to settle the bill? You also have a share of the dishes here, I just don't have the money, I'll see if you can get away." David smiled and sat back. When Chen Baoqiang's family heard it, they were all stunned. "David, what do you mean? It's agreed that you're treating yourself to a guest today. Do you want to be rude?" Chen Baoqiang asked with a frown. "But I don't want to ask for it now, so I'll be fooling you. If you don't give money, don't leave. I'll see if Lin Tianyu will peel off your skins too," David said with a rogue expression. Now that his parents are gone, David doesn't have to give face to Chen Baoqiang's family. Although it is his own relatives, David does not have the slightest affection for Chen Baoqiang's family. When David said this, all Chen Baoqiang's family were dumbfounded. They really couldn't imagine that David would cheat. David, don't FCUK with us, hurry up and give the money. Chen Ji panicked and rushed towards David. David looked at Chen Ji, who was rushing over. His face turned cold. This guy didn't even scream, he just screamed one after another. David wanted to beat him for a long time. Chen Ji rushed to David. David slapped him, and was directly slapped by Chen Ji, and fell heavily to the ground. Son. Younger brother. When Chen Baoqiang's family saw this, they all ran over in fright and screamed. Chen Ji was lifted up and looked at David with anger in his eyes, but at the moment he was more afraid of Lin Tianyu. If David didn't give the money, then Lin Tianyu would definitely not let them go. Dad, you said that David won't give you money, will Tiger Lord let us go? Chen Ji asked Chen Baoqiang nervously. Don't worry, your brother-in-law has a relationship with Lord Tiger. Since Lord Tiger can send 2 bottles of such good wine to your brother-in-law, he won't care about this meal. Chen Baoqiang said, looked at Li Lei and said, Jordan, if David doesn't give money for a while, you tell Hu Yi and let Hu Yi skin him, but don't trouble us. What? With an embarrassed look on Li Lei's face, he said nothing. He didn't know Lin Tianyu at all, how could he let Lin Tianyu give face, but Li Lei couldn't say it, and now he can only stand firm. Yeah, I forgot. Chen Ji suddenly stopped panicking, touched his painful face, looked at David viciously and said, David, you heard it now, wait for a while to see who gets skinned. David didn't pay attention to him, but poured himself a cup of tea and drank it. At this time, outside the private room, Ling Zhenchuan and Lin Tianyu were in front, followed by several leaders of various departments, all of them walking along with puzzled faces. They didn't understand, how could this big man eat in such an ordinary private room? Could it be that a private visit from the microservice is coming? Lin Tianyu took Ling Zhenchuan directly to the private room where David was, and said to Ling Zhenchuan, Mayor Ling, Mr. Chen is inside. Ling Zhenchuan nodded and was about to open the door when Li Weijian rushed over quickly and opened the door for Ling Zhenchuan flatteringly. Chapter 263. When the door opened, Li Weijian saw Li Lei and Chen Baoqiang's family sitting inside, and he was stunned. And Chen Baoqiang and the others were stunned when they saw Li Weijian and Ling Zhenchuan coming. What are you doing here? Li Weijian asked in shock. Dad, we're eating in this room, are you? Li Lei asked with a puzzled face. Mayor Ling came to toast Mr. Chen. Li Weijian said truthfully. When Chen Baoqiang heard this, his whole person seemed to be dreaming. He stood up tremblingly with excitement on his face. Ling. Mayor Ling, how could you please come over and give me a toast? I really can't bear it. Rise. Chen Baoqiang walked towards Ling Zhenchuan with the wine glass in his hand. He thought it was Li Weijian who spoke for him. Ling Zhenchuan felt embarrassed, so he came over to toast him. Go away, Mayor Ling doesn't respect you, Mayor Ling respects Mr. Chen. Li Weijian knew that Ling Zhenchuan was definitely not here to respect Chen Baoqiang, so he pushed Chen Baoqiang away. Chen Baoqiang was stunned. Here, his surname is Chen and his son, Chen Ji. It is impossible for the mayor to come and respect Chen Ji. As for David, who had been sitting still, Chen Baoqiang didn't even think about it. The mayor would not even be here to toast a prisoner who had just been released from prison. Director Li, besides me, there is no Mr. Chen here. Chen Baoqiang said cautiously. Li Weijian glanced at it, and it was indeed Chen Baoqiang's family. As for David, Li Weijian didn't even think about it. A simple young man in his early 20s couldn't possibly be Mr. Chen from Ling Zhenchuan's mouth. Mayor Ling, did we come to the wrong room? There is no Mr. Chen here. Li Weijian said carefully. Go away. Lin Tianyu pushed Li Weijian aside and walked towards David. And Ling Zhenchuan followed closely behind, walking to David and saying, Mr. Chen, I heard that you are drinking here too, so I came here to toast. I hope I don't disturb Mr. Chen. Boom. All of a sudden, the audience was dead silent, everyone's eyes widened, and their faces were unbelievable. Chen Baoqiang's family couldn't believe it, and the few people who followed Ling Zhenchuan couldn't believe it either. It is unbelievable that the top leader of the dignified city should speak so politely to a young man in his early 20s. Only Lin Tianyu smiled coldly and glanced at everyone. The few people who followed Ling Zhenchuan quickly reacted. Since Ling Zhenchuan is so polite to young people, there must be a reason. Maybe this person is the son of a big man in the provincial capital or even in Kyoto. Thinking of this, the leaders of the various departments who followed came forward together, and they were polite to David, holding wine glasses to toast. The faces of Chen Baoqiang's family were ashen, and their eyes were full of fear. How could these big leaders in their eyes be so polite to David? They really don't understand. Li Weijian also couldn't understand. He looked at Chen Baoqiang and hoped that Chen Baoqiang could give him an explanation. Since he was having dinner with such an important person, why didn't he tell him? Chen Baoqiang is so confused now, how could he explain it to Li Weijian? Could it be that David was a reformed through labor prisoner, not a big man? Mr. Chen, is this wine still easy to drink? I'm going to get a bottle and pour it for you. Lin Tianyu saw that the wine glass in front of David was empty, so he asked David. What wine? David glanced at Lin Tianyu. It's the 2 bottles of Maotai that I gave to Mr. Chen. I think these 2 bottles have been drunk. Lin Tianyu pointed to the empty bottle road. I didn't drink it. Someone said that you, Lin Tianyu, gave it to him, so I didn't drink it. David glanced at Li Lei, who had long been frightened, and smiled coldly. Chapter 264. Damn, who drank the wine I gave to Mr. Chen? Stand up for me. Lin Tianyu was furious and glanced at Chen Baoqiang's family. This time, the whole family was scared to death, their faces were pale, but all their eyes were on Li Lei. Don't look at me, don't look at me, I didn't say it, you think so, it has nothing to do with me. Li Lei was so frightened that his legs trembled and he urinated directly. Lin Tianyu's reputation is like thunder, and now Lin Tianyu is angry, isn't that courting death? It turns out that it's your son, what the H3LL are you, I need to bring you wine. Lin Tianyu rushed in front of Li Lei in 2 steps and grabbed Li Lei's collar, spit the wine out for me. Bang. Lin Tianyu punched Li Lei's abdomen, causing Li Lei to scream in pain. Tiger, Lord Tiger, stop hitting, this is my son, don't hit me for my sake. Seeing this, Li Weijian hurried forward and pulled Lin Tianyu. FCUKU, what are you, I'll give you face, you are the director of the health bureau, are you worthy? Lin Tianyu kicked Li Weijian away and punched Li Lei. The ghosts and wolf howls that Li Lei beat up scared Chen Baoqiang's family into a corner, and his body couldn't stop shaking. Master Tiger, if you drink too much, I'll pay you. Li Weijian can't watch his son be beaten to death, he can only say he loses money. This is a limited edition Motai, 1 bottle is 500,000, and 2 bottles are 1 million. Lin Tianyu yelled at Li Weijian. 1 million. Li Weijian was immediately stunned. He's just a director of health, and 1 million is not a small amount for him. Although he has made a lot of money over the years, he is reluctant to take it out after he has it in his hands. Too much, then let your son spit out the wine. As Lin Tianyu spoke, he punched Li Lei's stomach a few more times, and Li Lei wailed again and again. Master Tiger, stop fighting, I'll give it. Li Weijian took out his mobile phone, gritted his teeth and turned over 1 million. After receiving the money, Lin Tianyu let go of Li Lei and walked to David's side and said, Mr. Chen, I didn't make any arrangements. I'll ask someone to get the wine first. Lin Tianyu instructed people to get the collector's edition of Maotai again, while David sneered at the shivering Chen Baoqiang family. Who said just now that if I don't pay for food, Lin Tianyu will skin me? David got up and walked towards Chen Baoqiang's family. Chen Ji was so frightened that he couldn't stand, and curled up in the corner, leaving Chen Baoqiang and Li Shuzhen behind him. David, it's the second uncle that's wrong, don't bother with Chen Ji, he is still a child, the second uncle will give you the money for this meal, and the second uncle will give you the money. Chen Baoqiang prayed to David. Lin Tianyu, settle the account. David said to Lin Tianyu. Lin Tianyu nodded, glanced at it and said, a total of 200,000. 200,000. What are we going to eat, just 200,000? When Li Shuzhen heard this, she suddenly screamed. Shut up. Chen Baoqiang glared at Li Shuzhen. Why, do you think it's too much? Do you want me to give you a sum of money? Lin Tianyu's eyes narrowed slightly. No, we'll give you the money. Chen Baoqiang hurriedly shook his head and took out his mobile phone to pay the bill. At this time, Chen Baoqiang regretted to death. He knew that he would not order so many dishes. At that time, in order to make David look ugly, he ordered so many dishes without even looking at it. This time he shot himself in the foot. Mayor Ling, our Horrendal City's treatment is really not low. A director of the health bureau, an office director, spends hundreds of thousands of meals without blinking an eye. David looked at Ling Zhenchuan and said. Chapter 265. Mr. Chen, I will investigate this matter thoroughly. After Ling Zhenchuan finished speaking, he looked at Li Weijian and Chen Baoqiang and said, the 2 of you will be dismissed from today and will be investigated at that time. If you are found to be corrupt, you will be severely punished. PFFT. Li Weijian and Chen Baoqiang were all so scared that they slumped on the ground. If they were checked, none of them would be able to escape. Mayor Ling, Mr. Chen, let's talk somewhere else. Lin Tianyu has ordered someone to prepare the room again. Yeah. Ling Zhenchuan nodded, and then said to the few people who came with him, go back and wait for me, I'll go in a while. After a few people left, Ling Zhenchuan and David also walked out of the private room. When Lin Tianyu went out, he gave Li Weijian and his son and Chen Baoqiang a cold look, with a bit of disdain in his eyes. Looking at David's back, Chen Baoqiang's family fell into deep regret. If they don't treat the David family like this, will it be another result? But where in the world sells regret medicine? David didn't stay in the restaurant for too long, but simply chatted with Ling Zhenchuan. The reason why Ling Zhenchuan looked for David was to thank him and his son. He hoped that David would let Ling Feng go. It doesn't matter to David, as long as that Ling Feng doesn't provoke him, of course David will not go to trouble that Ling Feng. When David walked out of the restaurant, he found that his parents were rushing over. David, are you all right? Barbara asked with sweat on her face. Mom, I'm fine, what are you doing in such a hurry? David asked with a puzzled expression. Isn't this afraid of your accident? My dad and I found some money, and I don't know if it's enough. Barbara opened her carry-on bag, and it was full of money, some new and some old, some small and whole, a full bag, estimated to be 20,000 to 30,000. Looking at the money inside, David's eyes instantly turned red. He hugged Barbara and said, Mom, no need, the second uncle has given me the money. The reason why David is so excited is because he still thinks that after he goes back, he will find a chance to ask his parents if he picked it up. But at this moment, David didn't want to ask anything, whether he picked it up or not, he only had his current parents. Your second uncle gave money. What kind of wind is he smoking? Barbara couldn't believe it. Okay, as long as it's okay, let's go quickly, don't stay here for a long time. Zhen Baoguo urged, he always felt unsafe to stay here. After leaving, David went home, while Barbara and Chen Baoguo went to pay back the borrowed money. After returning home, David sat cross-legged on the bed, planning to practice for a while. But no matter how hard he tried to calm himself down, it was of no use. Chen Baoqiang's words of wild seed always rang in David's ears. What? David roared, shaking his head desperately, trying to drive the voice away, but it was useless. David knew that he had inner demons, and the only way to get rid of inner demons was to ask clearly what he wanted to know. But David couldn't open his mouth, he had no way to ask. From childhood to adulthood, both Barbara and Chen Baoguo have loved him very much, even if Chen Baoguo is strict, he has never beaten him. David never thought that he was not his biological parents, and he had no such thoughts at all, but now, David is in a mess and can't calm down anymore. Just like this tossing and turning, David struggled for a long time, until Barbara called David for dinner, and David walked out of the room. Seeing that David's face was not very good, Barbara hurriedly asked, David, are you ill? Chapter 266. Mom, I'm fine. David squeezed out a smile and said. Sitting at the dining table, the family was eating, no one spoke, and the atmosphere became a little weird. David was afraid that his parents would see his strangeness, so he hurriedly took 2 bites, and said he was full and left. Barbara and Chen Baoguo looked at each other, and both sighed heavily. It should come, sooner or later. Chen Baoguo sighed softly. Over the years, I have long regarded David as my own, and I have long forgotten that he picked it up. Why does that Chen Baoqiang talk nonsense? Barbara said, her eyes were slightly red. Now David has a lot of things on his mind, it seems that he can't hide it. David is old, we should tell him too, he should also have the right to know his life experience, we can't be too selfish. Chen Baoguo sat next to Barbara, and said gently hugging Barbara's shoulders. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid that David will leave us and find his biological parents. I can't live without him in my current world. Barbara's mother, who had been with her for more than 20 years, suddenly lost her child. She couldn't bear it. Whether he can find his biological parents or not, let him decide for himself. Even if David is gone, I will be by your side, and we will walk through the rest of the time together. Chen Baoguo tried his best to comfort Barbara, and tried his best to say the most disgusting words. Barbara snuggled up on Chen Baoguo's shoulders, tears fell drop by drop. After an unknown amount of time, Barbara got up and wiped her tears, and said to Chen Baoguo, go and call David out. Chen Baoguo nodded, walked to the bedroom and knocked on David's door. David, come out, my mother and I have something to tell you. After Chen Baoguo finished speaking, he left. And David in the room was stunned, he seemed to be able to guess what his parents were going to tell him. David was a little conflicted. He didn't want to admit that he picked it up, but he really wanted to know who his biological parents were. After hesitating for a while, David walked out. At this time, Barbara and Chen Baoguo were already sitting on the sofa. Neither of them spoke. The atmosphere was a little depressing. In front of Barbara, there was a small wooden box, which was only the size of a palm. Dad, Mom. David shouted at Chen Baoguo and Barbara. Sit down. Chen Baoguo asked David to sit down, then took 2 puffs of cigarettes, and said to David, David, you are not too young, so I should tell you something. Speaking of which, Chen Baoguo stopped talking, but looked at Barbara, who was on the side, while Barbara was dodging her eyes, and she didn't want to follow David in person. Neither of the two wanted to speak, so they were deadlocked. Dad, Mom, no matter what it is, you will always be my parents, and I will never leave you. I will give you old age and death, and I will give you big fat grandchildren. David said, and knelt down directly to Chen Baoguo and Barbara. Barbara couldn't help it, her tears flowed out again. She hurriedly stepped forward to help David up, and hugged David tightly. Good boy, good boy. Mom, don't cry, no matter if I'm your own or not, you will always be my mother. You raised me little by little over the years. I still remember when I was 5 years old, you carried me in the heavy rain at night. See a doctor. David helped Barbara wipe away her tears. David's words made Barbara put down her worries and looked at David with great relief. Child, you are indeed not born to your mother. I have a physical problem and I can't have children at all. You were picked up by your father on the side of the road. You were very young at that time, and the year when I picked you up was still winter, and your whole body was red with cold. Chapter 267. Barbara began to slowly talk about the year when David was picked up. Barbara talked a lot, and David listened very carefully. Because he had already thought about it, David's expression did not change much. There was nothing on you at that time, there was only such a jade pendant, and Mom put it away for you. Barbara said, and opened the small wooden box. Inside was a jade pendant of emerald green, and there was a trace of blood red in the jade pendant. David took the jade pendant and held it in his hand, and suddenly felt a warm current wrapping his body. There was no way to express that comfortable feeling in words. This jade pendant seems to be a part of his body, and he can even sense the world in the jade pendant, which is a feeling of blood connection. Child, this is the only thing your biological parents left you, and now it's handed over to you. As for the other information, we don't know. Barbara said lightly. At this time, her mood was much calmer. Some things are said, and it is not as bad as imagined. David, if you want to find your biological parents, we will not stop you. After all, you also have the right to know who your biological parents are. Chen Baoguo said to David. Parents, don't worry, I won't go anywhere, I'm your son, and I'll never change. David said with a serious look on Yansu's face. Seeing David's serious look, Chen Baoguo also showed a relieved smile on his face. Yes, you are my son of Chen Baoguo, whoever dares to talk nonsense and say you are a wild breed, I will fight him. Chen Baoguo clenched his fists. If Chen Baoqiang dared to say what David said at this time, it is estimated that Chen Baoguo would do it without hesitation. After the family chatted for a while, David returned to the bedroom. After returning to the bedroom, David couldn't wait to pick up the jade pendant, and a trace of spiritual power began to inject into the jade pendant. When he just got the jade pendant, David felt that there was a spiritual energy fluctuation in the jade pendant, as if something was sealed in the jade pendant. However, when David injected spiritual energy into the jade pendant, it was directly bounced back. There were even taboos in the jade pendant, which made David feel a little strange. So David increased his spiritual power, but no matter how hard David tried, there was no way to break the taboo. Looking at the jade pendant in his hand, David was a little overwhelmed. He can be sure that there must be something in the jade pendant, but what it is, you need to inject spiritual power into it to know. Just when David was at a loss, he suddenly remembered the episodes he often saw in TV dramas, confessing his relatives by dripping blood. If this is the jade pendant left by his biological parents, can it only be opened with his own blood? Thinking of this, David bit his finger and a drop of blood fell on the jade pendant. The blood was absorbed in an instant, and then the jade pendant suddenly glowed red, and the whole room was illuminated extremely red, followed by a muffled sound, and the jade pendant in David's hand turned into powder in an instant. At the same time, in the red light, the figure of a woman was actually reflected. The woman was wearing an ancient white dress, and her delicate face was simply overwhelming, just like a fairy in a painting. When David saw this woman, there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity, and he felt very close and familiar. Child, I didn't expect you to still be alive, it's great. There was excitement in the woman's eyes. Who are you? David asked in a low voice. When you see me, you will definitely feel very curious and afraid, but you don't have to be afraid. I will not harm you, because I am your biological mother, leaving yourself behind. In fact, I am really reluctant, but I have no choice, or they will kill you. Who are they? David frowned slightly. Chapter 268. But the woman did not answer David, but continued, Child, there are many things you don't know in this world. You must not be curious, and do not explore, because in the unknown field, there are too many things. You have my bloodline in you, so you must be different from ordinary people, but you don't need to panic, just be an ordinary person. Don't set foot in the immortal cultivation world, and don't go to Suolong Island. Don't go. If you can see that you are still alive, your mother will be relieved. Don't try to find me, you won't find it at all. Remember, if you live with your mother, don't go to Suolong Island, don't go. Slowly, the woman's figure became more and more blurred, and finally disappeared directly. Who the H3LL are you? What the H3LL is going on here? David shouted, but no one responded to him. Everything in the room has returned to calm, only the powder on the ground is telling David that everything just now is true. Suolong Island, why is it Suolong Island again? What the H3LL is going on? David was personally confused. He didn't understand why this woman who claimed to be his biological mother prevented him from stepping into the world of immortality. What about preventing yourself from going to Dragon Island? But the urban took him into the world of immortality, but told himself about the Dragon Island, and told David that he must go to the Dragon Island after his great strength. One let him go, and the other tried desperately to stop him from going. David is now stunned. After thinking hard in the middle of the night, David didn't even understand it. He didn't know many things, so it was impossible to understand. I'd better improve my strength first, and talk about it after I go to Wooming Island on July 15th. Maybe I go to Wooming Island, and I will know some things I want to know. David sighed, and simply stopped thinking about it, and fell asleep with his head covered. Phoenix Bar. Although it was already late at night, there were many luxury cars in front of the bar, and many handsome men and beautiful women were drinking and dancing in the bar, and they played very casually. At a table in the corner of the bar, there are more than a dozen empty wine bottles in front of Jordan. He has been drinking here for a long time. Although David would not be looking for trouble with the Xiao family, Jordan was completely reduced to a laughingstock in this upper-class circle. Brother Lei, I know you will definitely be here, don't drink anymore, you drink too much. At this moment, Delia walked over wearing revealing clothes and stepped forward to sit next to Jordan. Delia knew how she begged David, David would not forgive her, and at the class reunion, she lost all face, so she had to rely on Jordan to stand up again. Now, apart from Jordan, she really has nothing to rely on, and her reputation has been ruined in the upper circle of Horrendal. You, why are you here? Get out of my way. Seeing that it was Delia, Jordan was so frightened that he hurriedly pushed Delia away. Brother Lei, are you still afraid of David? You have already sent 2 of his companies, and he also said that he is not looking for trouble. What are you afraid of? Delia questioned Jordan. Delia's words caused many people around to instantly cast a playful look at Jordan. Feeling the gazes of the people around him, Jordan's face became angry. Art, I'm afraid of him, I'm not afraid of him at all, I'm not afraid of anyone. Jordan, who drank a lot, didn't know what fear was at this time. Brother Lei, since you're not afraid, why don't we continue to be together? The wedding invitations were all sent out, but the wedding didn't take place. Aren't you afraid that you will be the laughingstock of others? Delia stepped forward and put her arms around Jordan's neck. Chapter 269. Delia didn't know that Jordan at this time had already become the laughingstock of the upper-class circle, otherwise he wouldn't be drinking alone. Laugh. Who the H3LL dares to laugh? Even if my Xiao family sent out 2 companies, they are still considered a first-class family. Who dares to laugh at me? Jordan slapped the table fiercely and roared loudly. The people around him instantly cast contemptuous glances, but no one paid him any attention. Clap, clap, clap. At this moment, a man suddenly clapped his palms and walked over, looking at Jordan with a sneer. The dignified young master of the Xiao family, who was frightened by a labor prisoner into such a virtue, dared to talk about it in the bar. Who the FCUK said that? I. Jordan was furious, but when he raised his eyes and saw the person coming, he was stunned. He was half sober in an instant, and said in horror, Wei. Master Wei. The person who came was Wei Dao from the Wei family in the provincial capital. Seeing that Wei Dao came to Horrendal, many young masters and young ladies from the rich family gathered around. They all wanted to take the opportunity to get to know Wei Dao, and even many girls winked at Wei Dao. You must know that Horrendal and the provincial capital are incomparable, like a cat and a tiger, so even the most powerful family in Horrendal, in the eyes of these wealthy families in the provincial capital, they are like ants. Go away. The two bodyguards who followed Wei Dao directly drove aside some of the young masters and the rich ladies who were surrounding him. You must know that each of these rich second generation is more arrogant and domineering, but being reprimanded by the Wei family bodyguards like this, one by one, no one dares to speak, and obediently walk away. Looking at the scene in front of her, Delia was extremely shocked. She always thought that she was at the pinnacle of her life when she was next to Jordan, but now seeing this scene, she realized that she was really a frog at the bottom of the well. Come with me, I have something for you. After Wei Dao finished speaking with Jordan, he turned and walked out. But when she turned around, she deliberately looked at Delia next to Jordan. This time, Delia hurriedly raised her chest and raised her head, trying her best to show herself in front of Wei Dao. Wei Dao raised the corner of his mouth and left immediately, while Jordan shook his body and was helped out of the bar by Delia. Wei Dao was sitting on a Rolls Royce waiting for them at this time. After rolling down the window, Wei Dao said to Jordan, "Get in the car." Delia helped Jordan into the car, but was pushed away by Jordan. "Go away." She pretended to be pitiful, and couldn't help but glance at Wei Dao. "Let her come up." Wei Dao said. How dare Jordan say anything? Delia got into the car. The car had been driving for more than half an hour before it stopped on a road under construction. It was pitch black and there were no street lights around. It looked a little scary. "Wei, young Master Wei, what do you have to do with me?" Looking at the darkness around him, Jordan had already woken up with fright at this time. "Everyone else go down." Wei Dao ordered the bodyguard to go down, and then glanced at Delia. Delia also opened the car door and walked down slowly. At this time, only Wei Dao and Jordan were left in the car, and Jordan's forehead began to sweat. He didn't feel that he had offended the Wei family, and he didn't know what Wei Dao was doing to him, and he even brought him to such a place. "Is that woman your girlfriend?" Wei Dao asked. "Yes, no. Jordan shook his head. "Not now." Seeing Jordan like that, Wei Dao snorted coldly. "It's because of David that you broke up, right?" "That woman is David's ex-girlfriend." Jordan was stunned for a moment. He didn't know how Wei Dao knew about these things. Chapter 270. You don't need to look at me in such surprise. There is nothing in Zhongbei province that you can hide from me. Are you, a son of the dignified Xiao family, willing to be crushed by a prisoner of labor reform? Wei Dao looked at Jordan with disdain and asked. Hey. Jordan sighed. Young Master Wei doesn't know anything. I don't know what that David is capable of, but Ji Wenshan, Lin Tianyu, and Ruben took a fancy to him. All of them respected him. My Xiao family can't compare. Ha ha ha, Ji Wenshan, Lin Tianyu, and Ruben are so powerful, they are really frightening. Wei Dao laughed, his eyes full of disdain. Jordan said with a face full of embarrassment, of course these people are nothing in the eyes of Wei Gongzi, but how dare my Xiao family compare with Wei Gongzi? Jordan, I'll give you a chance now, would you like it? Wei Dao narrowed his eyes. Jordan was stunned and said, I don't know what chance Mr. Wei is talking about. I can let you take revenge on David as much as you want, but none of the people you mentioned dared to help him. Wei Dao said with a half smile but not a smile. Really? Jordan's eyes lit up, but soon faded away and said, why does young Master Wei help me? I don't think young Master Wei is helping others. Ha ha ha, helping others. I, Wei Dao, never help others. When I help you deal with David, I also help myself. Have you forgotten my relationship with Sonia? Wei Dao laughed. Jordan was stunned for a moment, but then said excitedly, young Master Wei likes Sonia, but now David and Sonia are very close. The two of them have said in public that they are boyfriend and girlfriend. Yes, how could my Wei Tao's woman be snatched away by a prisoner of labor reform? Let me tell you the truth, that Ling Feng also broke his wrist by this David, and now he hates David to the core. Do you think there is me behind it? With Ling Feng supporting you, who would dare to help David? Wei Dao said with a gloomy expression. Ling Feng. Jordan's eyes suddenly widened. Is that the son of Mayor Ling? Yes, that Ling Feng also likes Sonia. You should have heard that the two of them had a conflict over this, and now Ling Feng is not allowed to show his face because of his identity, and I have come from afar, so it is not suitable, so the most suitable candidate is you. Wei Dao followed Jordan without hesitation. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, this David is really a birthday star who eats arsenic and thinks he has a long life. Even the son of Mayor Ling dares to beat him. This time he is definitely dead. Jordan laughed. His face full of excitement. If you know this is the case, my two companies will not give it to him. If you kill David, the company will not return to you. Wei Dao smiled. Yes. Jordan nodded. Young Master Wei, what should I do? Then David knows Kung Fu and is very strong, I'm afraid. Don't worry, these 2 bodyguards I brought are for you to send. They are all masters. In addition, as long as you do this, make sure that David will obey. Wei Dao whispered in Jordan's ear. After listening to Wei Tao's words, Jordan couldn't help shivering. Young Master Wei, is this not possible? Then Reuben will definitely take revenge. You're afraid of a ball. If you want to do something to Sonia, she is just a bait. When the time comes, can Reuben do anything to me? Wei Dao glanced at Jordan with contempt. That's right. Jordan nodded. Since young Master Wei is behind me, I don't need to be afraid. Go, I believe in you. When the time comes when the 2 of us join forces, your Xiao family will definitely become the richest man in Horrendal. Wei Dao patted Jordan on the shoulder.